What is up, my dudes? It's Ariel. If you know me or if you don't know me, still Ariel. And today I am back with another video. This is a video I haven't filmed before, but I have been thinking about it for some time, so I'm pretty excited. Today I'm going to be talking about some of my fashion unpopular opinions. Some of these may or may not be unpopular. I guess it's up to you to decide. But I guess more so hot takes about fashion in the broadest sense. Some about specific brands and stuff. Some about things about the industry in general. And I'm saying this as someone who wouldn't really consider myself in the industry, but just from things I've observed. These are my unpopular opinions and hot takes and think pieces that I've gathered. And I just want to talk about and kind of start a discussion. So if you agree or disagree with any of these, feel free to continue the conversation down below. I really want to hear what you guys think about it, and it's really just stuff that I wanted to talk about, thought would be interesting to talk about. So yeah, let's just get into it. I'm gonna start off with one that I think might be the most controversial. I have them written down here, by the way, but my first unpopular opinion is that Pinterest and arguably TikTok, where you're constantly shown different images, styles, and algorithmically derived inspirations, actually hinder you from developing your personal style rather than facilitating it. I feel like a lot of people recommend scrolling on Pinterest, finding ideas of things they want to style and fashion inspo and stuff. However, I feel like rather than doing what you might hope for it to do, which is like help you curate your own personal style, I think it kind of does the opposite and hinders you from creating your own personal style. Let me elaborate. So on sites like Pinterest and TikTok, you're shown things based on what you interact with, what you like, but it's all derived from mainly an algorithm rather than people you follow. Sure, you could follow people on these sites, but like the TikTok For You page or on Pinterest when you're just on your homepage scrolling, you're just being shown a bunch of images that the algorithm of these apps decide for you that you would like or be into based on your past activity. And because of this, I feel like a lot of the same inspirations and images are being shown to people who the algorithm has decided to categorize into these specific groups of, oh, you'd be interested in that. Because of that, one, a lot of the inspirations that people are being shown to such a wide audience that if it does inspire your style, it's not something that's unique, you know? It's something that's being shown to everyone else. So if we all have the same inspiration, no one is going to have a unique inspiration. Sure, you could take on that inspiration in a different way, but it's kind of all contrived from the same thing. So it's hard to make something unique to you if you're basing it off of the same images or set of images or aesthetic. And additionally, you're seeing such a huge variety of different inspirations. The algorithm is throwing different things at you to see what you'll take on and what you're not so interested in. And by doing that, I feel like it kind of confuses and dilutes what you might like. I honestly think it's too much, too overwhelming, and it makes it more difficult for you to find your own personal style and sense of self in that huge mix and array of all these different things you're being shown constantly. And I think that instead, removing yourself from all of these constant inspirations and people trying to show you what you should like or what you might like, and instead just paying attention to what you might see naturally, whether that's when you're out and about on the street. I know that it's easier for me to say because I'm in New York, so I see a bunch of different inspirations and styles and stuff as I go about my day, just from what people are wearing on the street and etc. But even if you're not in a major city or whatever, I think you can still draw inspiration from your environment, from people you see, from celebrities you might see, from different Instagram pages. And sure, those are also things that you're being influenced by that are shown to you from an external source. But I think Tumblr is a great example of that. On Tumblr, although it's very similar to Pinterest in the way that you're constantly being shown images, often without much context, I think it's easier to derive more tailored inspiration and I guess kind of find your own personal style in the mix of that, because it's not all things that are being shown to you by an algorithm, and it's more tailored to yourself rather than a whole bunch of people being shown the same things and then drawing inspiration from that. On Tumblr, at least, you see images of the people you follow 90% of the time, and you can follow people who already are showing interest in your specific niche topic or thing that you're interested in rather than what the algorithm is pushing out to you and 5 million other people. So yeah, I just think that it could be hard to derive your your own personal style when you're constantly being pushed different images. And I think it also promotes people to try to keep up with the trend cycle more rather than find your own style that you'll stick with more long term and that really resonates with you. And often I see comments like, when you can't decide if you want to be cottagecore or grunge or this or that, like talking about different aesthetics. And I think that the reason why this is a problem is because you're often shown all these different aesthetics and given a little bite-sized sample of it, and with all those different influences you're constantly being shown, it makes it harder to find what identifies with you versus what you just might see and like and appreciate but not necessarily want to take on yourself. When you see a bunch of people taking it on and you're constantly being shown it in different ways, I feel like there's more pressure, or you'd be more likely to take it on yourself. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm curious to hear what you guys think of that one, because I often hear people give the advice of go on Pinterest to try to find your style and your inspirations, but I think that it's easy to get lost in that and find yourself trying to emulate all these different aesthetics rather than curate your own personal style based on who you are as a person and what resonates with you. But I don't know. Curious to hear what you guys think about that. Okay, next one. And this also might be a controversial take. However, I feel like I'm starting to see people agree with this, but I think that Heaven by Marc Jacobs, the brand, ruined their own brand by releasing too many collections and drops back to back while upping their prices. I guess this one kind of speaks for itself. There's not really much more to say about this, but I feel like when Heaven by Marc Jacobs first dropped, it was super successful because it was something that was new. Their logo was new, their style of advertising was new, everything about it was new, and also the prices then were a lot lower than what they're at now. I feel like with every drop, this might not be true, but over the timeline of the 2 years it's been around, it definitely is true that the prices have gone up, and I honestly feel like they've gone up incrementally with each drop. And along with that, I feel like because they've released so much stuff with their little logo on it, the double-headed teddy, it's gotten old very, very quickly. I think if they were to have spaced it out longer, it would have still been kind of cool. And of course, there's also somewhat of a currency based on rarity and how hard it is to get your hands on something. So making it more scarce, I think, would have made it more relevant and have better longevity over time. But because they were super quick to release collection after collection after collection, I feel like they had at least 2 drops every season since they've started. It got stale really fast. It was really fun to see it rise in the beginning when they had their new fresh form of advertisement and they had a cute new design, and it was a major fashion label. Although Marc Jacobs was really on the decline before Heaven, it was a major fashion label that a lot of people knew about before, but it was targeting a younger demographic specifically in a way that I feel like no other major fashion label has been doing. But I think that in that and with all their success, they kind of lost what made them great or made people gravitate towards it initially. I think it was really nice in the beginning to see their very niche sort of advertising and to almost feel represented in a way, and also to be able to get a high fashion designer brand at a lower price point, because it is a sub-label of the Marc Jacobs brand and it's supposed to be a diffusion line, which is a cheaper offshoot of a more expensive brand. But I feel like at this point, a lot of the clothes are on par with what the main label would be charging, so they're super expensive. And as they release more and more, I feel like their brand identity and what's made them cool initially has kind of been lost. And of course, there's been all the controversy about it as well, which has not been a help. I've been thinking of making a video going more into detail about Heaven by Marc Jacobs specifically, because I think it's super interesting to see, and I think it's funny how I guess everybody has kind of turned their backs and changed their opinion on it around the same time in such a short period of time since it's been out. Yeah, that's just my short think piece on it. Let me know if you'd be interested in a whole video about it. But moral of the story is nobody is gonna pay $80, $85 for a baby tee that says Heaven anymore, because it's lost its charm. None of the new drops have really been selling out. I'm pretty sure most of the things are still available online, and I feel like that itself really speaks to just the longevity and the relevance of the brand. Moving on. This one also might ruffle some feathers, and it's also about more of a specific brand, but I don't mind or really care that much that UNIF steals or copies old vintage designs. So I know that there's a huge, I guess, kind of controversy or discourse about UNIF stealing designs and taking designs of older vintage brands and specific vintage pieces and reproducing them. And personally, I don't see anything all too wrong about it. It wasn't always like this. I used to really love the Instagram account UNIF Copied, which would post a bunch of vintage original designs and then the UNIF version. And for a while I was really opposed to even buying from UNIF directly. I'd only buy from Depop. One, because of price, they're super expensive, but two, because I didn't know how I morally felt about the fact that they were using old designs. But honestly, I don't really see anything wrong with it now, and I would honestly buy some of their vintage reproduced designs for a couple reasons. Number one, they do it sustainably from what I'm aware of. I've looked into their sustainability practices, and apparently it's produced in a small factory in China by a family. Of course, this is just what they're putting out. I don't know how much that's true, but from what I've heard, I'm not opposed to it. I do think they could be more transparent with their sustainability practices. That's not the main point, but from what I'm aware of, they're doing it sustainably, and also they're making these vintage designs that otherwise you would have to be lucky to find on Depop in your size in good condition still after all these years. They're taking those designs and making them more accessible to a wider audience. Of course, are they accessible? Could be argued because the price point is very high, which is a whole nother thing, but they're taking a design that otherwise would be a one-off or a lot harder to come by and generally making it purchasable if of course you have the funds to do so, which I don't see anything wrong with. There are a lot of UNIF designs that I've seen the vintage version versus the original version, and I made the extra step to go through and avidly look for the vintage version, and sometimes after many months of looking, I'll find the original vintage version and it'll be a bit cheaper than the UNIF version. But of course, I spent a bunch of time doing that. Sometimes I'll find it and it's not even my size, so I can't really have it, you know? And in those instances, I'm glad that there's at least the alternative of me getting something of a similar style, readily accessible. I could just go on the site and buy it. I think that they catch a lot of flack for taking vintage designs and reproducing them on a wider scale, but I don't see anything wrong with it if they're doing it sustainably. Could the prices be lower? I'm sure, like, yeah. Honestly, I don't really buy from UNIF all that much because of the price point. It's super expensive. I might buy something for Black Friday or if they're doing a major sale, but on the daily, I really don't have the funds to just shop there at will. But I don't really see anything with them taking these older designs and reproducing them, especially when other brands like Shein will deliberately take designs from brands that are currently still up and running and producing their original item. Brands like Shein or brands on AliExpress will take those designs and directly steal them and copy them, and people will buy them. Of course, I see the brand owners and people who know about the original brand speaking up about it, and I'm 100% with them. I think that's so messed up, but I don't see on a wider scale people really being as upset. Maybe it's just two different target audiences. Like, the people who are interested in buying vintage aren't shopping on Shein and buying dupes, but I really don't see as much uproar about Shein literally ripping off smaller brands that are currently selling and trying to grow their brand. I don't see people bashing Shein in the same way that they bash UNIF, and UNIF isn't really taking away business from any brand because the brands that they're copying the designs of, they're not making the shoe or the sweater or whatever it is anymore. So the only other way you can get it is from UNIF, whereas on sites like Shein, the original brand is literally producing and selling that item that Shein is ripping off at a lower price, and people will still buy it with no issue and like post TikToks about, oh, this great new dupe I found. I don't know, just think that's interesting. I definitely do think there are two different audiences. Like, the same people buying dupes on Shein probably aren't looking to buy vintage, but whatever. I just think that it's interesting, and because it's something that I personally have had a change of heart about, I'm curious to hear everybody else's opinions and thoughts on that. Next up, I haven't really seen this talked about much, but my next unpopular opinion is that the modeling industry and desire to be a model is really overrated, and I personally would much rather be working behind the scenes versus being a model. I think that the modeling industry in and of itself is overrated, way overrated, and I say this as someone who is signed to a modeling agency. I got signed a couple months ago, and I see a lot of people glamorizing and aspiring to be a model, moving to major cities, sending out their headshots and stuff stuff, and I don't necessarily see anything wrong with it, but I do think it's over glamorized for what it is, which is really just like being a mannequin for brands. I know it's not just that. I know that modeling is definitely an art. I'm a big fan of the models from the 90s, just their whole persona and how they would walk so many major shows of designers in their prime. But I feel like now it's not really that. There are no more Kate Mosses or Naomi Campbells, and I think that striving to be a model is kind of, I don't know, personally I'd find it unfulfilling. The only reason I signed to an agency was because I was scouted and approached, but my whole life I've been told, oh, you should model, why don't you model, this and that, and it's because it's just not something I was really interested in. Number one, models don't really get paid that much. Only really for commercial shoots, models get paid a decent amount depending on what you book, and I feel like it's not commercial modeling that I see glamorized and really aspired to. It's more so the Bella Hadid, the Kaya Gerber runway model thing that I see super glamorized, and people are like, oh, that's my dream. But I don't know, you're wearing other people's clothes, you don't have a creative say. A lot of times runway models don't get paid. I think part of it is that being told you can model and being a runway model also means that you fit a certain standard of beauty, and it's kind of confirming, yes, you're beautiful enough to be a model. And it's kind of like, oh, this brand thinks I'm beautiful enough, or I fit the image enough of the brand to walk for them, even though they're not paying me, and even though I don't really have a creative say, I'm just gonna be a mannequin. It's not like they're making you the face of their brand. I don't know, I just think it's a bit empty. I think that it's overrated as well. I personally would much rather be behind the scenes putting together parts of the show, whether it's organizing the music of the show or helping with the styling of the models and the fitting, something more creative in the process rather than just walking. I do get that modeling is an art and a career for some, but I think the end-all be-all goal of being a model is kind of empty. I feel like it's very much rooted in confirming your own beauty and being affirmed in your beauty. I don't know, like, I don't seek out being a model because in my mind I already know that I'm beautiful, or I'm okay with how I look. I'm confident in how I look. I don't need a major brand telling me, yes, you fit the look of the brand, we want you to walk in our show, especially not if I'm not getting paid for it. I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of models have to pay out of their own pocket to walk in a show. What is that doing for me as a person? In that sense, I'm doing the brand a favor by working for them for free. And for what? Models will do this, and it's super glamorized. It's supposedly such a coveted spot to be able to walk for certain designers, even if you're paying out of your own pocket to walk in the show. And I just don't understand it. I think it's so overrated. I would much rather be behind the scenes in the creative process somehow. Maybe I just don't get it. Would love to hear other people's takes on it, but I don't know. I see so much content about aspiring to be a model and models busting their ass going to all these bookings and stuff, and I'm just thinking, for what? Like, if I'm not getting paid a fat check, you could not find me monitoring how I eat, being limited on how I can alter how I look, doing this, doing that, busting my ass for these major brands to walk in their show so that what? I can feel like I'm beautiful enough to do so. I fail to see the real pull of it. And because it's not like how it was in the 90s where there were those core models where they became a household name solely off of modeling, like nowadays, if you're not kind of a nepotism baby, or like have some kind of prior in the industry already, or are like a major top model, you're not really getting much social currency from it. I don't know. I don't think it's like all that it's cracked up to be, unless you're Bella Hadid or something. I just don't really, I don't get it. I thought it would be a nice way to make some cash while I'm in medical school, and I can't work a traditional job, so booking a couple commercial gigs here and there could really help me out. But other than that, I just don't get it. I don't get why so many people are so fixed and drawn to being a model, just for these brands to, once you no longer fit their image, unless you're Kate Moss or Naomi Campbell, when your time is over and you reach your late 20s, early 30s, you're just discarded. And then what are you gonna do? Very curious to hear your thoughts on this. Maybe I'm a bit jaded, but yeah, that's just what I think. I think the modeling industry is overrated. And lastly, this is gonna be my last unpopular opinion for this video. I think that there's so much I can say about this one. I might do a whole video on this as well, but I think that the fashion hierarchy is annoying, overrated, and exclusionary, and ultimately it's what puts me off from fashion. It makes me glad that I didn't pursue fashion as a career. Let me elaborate more on this and what kind of brought this to my mind. I don't necessarily think that this is an unpopular opinion, but it is something I really wanted to talk about. The thing that kind of sparked this thought in my mind is a comment I got on my last video. Someone said, as someone who actually understands high fashion, this video is super disappointing. Talking about a video of me just unboxing some stuff I got from Japan. You can go see the video. And my issue was not with them saying this video is disappointing, but it's the beginning that was like, as someone who actually understands high fashion, that really just reminded me what I hate so much about the fashion industry in general. And it's that, oh, I know more than you, I know this right, you don't know as much as me mentality. When I got that comment, I also wrote a little excerpt, or I guess a rant, on my Tumblr, kind of responding to it. I'm gonna read it because I think that it said exactly what I wanted to say. There's nothing more annoying than people who are pretentious about fashion. I don't care how much you know if you're gonna act like you're more correct or better than other people. All of the best and most impactful figures in fashion didn't have this mindset, and it's part of what made them great. Being fashionable or being knowledgeable about fashion doesn't give you the excuse to be a dick. I would rather be around the least fashionable person ever than someone super knowledgeable and well-versed in fashion or history with a pretentious or condescending attitude. And I think that this is true and can be said about experts or self-proclaimed experts or whatever it is in any field. For example, in my medical school classes, sure, my professors can be a bit condescending sometimes, and when I shadow doctors, they can have a more condescending and I know more than you attitude, and like, to be fair, sure they do, but nobody is gonna want to learn or listen to someone with that kind of attitude. And I think it's especially prominent in the fashion industry because fashion is an integral part of life. Whether you buy into it or not, even choosing not to really engage in fashion or high fashion or whatever it is, that's a fashion choice. Everyone has to clothe their bodies, and in that, they're participating in fashion. But I think that because everybody's a part of fashion and so many people show an interest in fashion, I feel like the high fashion people feel such a need to other themselves, like, oh, I know more about this than you, I'm more correct than you, I have more knowledge about this than you don't understand it, you don't get it. And I think it's so obnoxious. I think it's super prominent in the fashion industry itself. Like, if I were to pursue a career in fashion design or any area of fashion styling, I am sure I would encounter so many people in the industry with this mindset, because as people get more successful in the industry, I feel like they adopt this mindset to kind of other themselves from people who are kind of just trying to break into the industry or just show a general interest in fashion. They kind of need to separate themselves from that. Like, no, I know this, like, I'm professionally this, like, I'm educated in this. And it's not from a teaching mindset as much as it is from an in-group mindset of separating themselves from the normal people who don't know as much. And I think that's so obnoxious. It makes me so annoyed to be around, and that's such a common attitude in the industry that that comment specifically, and just in general, reminded me why I chose not to go into fashion and why I'm pursuing a career in medicine. Because sure, maybe my medical school colleagues and stuff can have that attitude as well, and my professors can have that attitude as well, but at least it's in an area that's separate to me. Like, I'm not basing my entire worth or like really finding inherent joy in the medical industry as much as what I think I would be able to gain from doing it and how I'd be able to feel fulfilled by helping other people. Whereas fashion is a hobby of mine, a very strong hobby of mine, and I think that being around people with that kind of attitude so often would completely ruin it and would make me no longer interested in fashion, which is why I'm glad I didn't pursue it professionally in the first place, because you're bound to run into people with that mindset if you work in the industry, and I don't think I could deal with it. I just don't. I know a lot of people love The Devil Wears Prada and, oh, it's just a rite of passage to be talked down on by people who know more in the industry, but it makes me so annoyed. And that in-group is very white. It's often very male. It's even harder to break into that as a person of color, as a woman, as a young person, and I'm so over it. It's just giving Mean Girls in high school. Like, sure, you know more, but I would rather be around someone who wears Kirkland from Costco or someone who wears clothes from Walmart, who has a good attitude and an open mindset to learning and taking criticism and just an open, non-condescending mindset. Someone who doesn't have a superiority complex, rather than a major fashion designer, a major label, someone who knows high fashion with a bad attitude and with an I'm better than you mindset. I can't deal with it. I have zero tolerance for it. I've been around it so much that I just can't. I can't. It grosses me out and it's so annoying annoying, and I feel like a lot of it is rooted in people who feel like maybe fashion is all they really have going for them. People who don't have confidence in who they are as a person, looking to fashion to have some sort of superiority over the next person. Like, oh, sure, I might not be the most confident person, but finding solace and comfort in the fact that like I'm super knowledgeable about high fashion and you're not. It's just another thing to kind of keep other people out, and I'm so not for that. I think fashion is for everybody, quite literally, because everyone has to engage in fashion. Ryan Finn does an amazing job talking about these kind of topics on her TikTok, which is @thatadult, and on her YouTube channel. I was just watching one of her YouTube videos before I was filming this, and it just further made me think, yes, so many people I feel like don't get it and are so wrapped up in the in-group, out-group mentality of fashion, and it's so annoying. Like, oh, you know about this designer, you know about high fashion, you can tell me the history of how Mason Martin Margiela got his start. Oh wow, amazing. Like, I don't care. I don't care, and I'd love to learn about those things, but if you don't have an attitude of teaching or just not being pretentious about it, I don't care. I don't care. It's not doing anything for me, and I don't care. And it's what puts me off from fashion as a whole. And even when I have teachers and professors in school that have that, oh, this is easy, you don't get it mindset, I suddenly find it so much harder to learn from them because of their attitude. I don't know, I feel like in fashion, having a bad attitude is often seen as a plus, or like designers get a pass for having a bad attitude because, oh, what, they're a designer? Like, I don't care. I so don't care. It's not even funny. It's so annoying, and honestly, it's why I'm glad I didn't choose to pursue fashion as a career, because that would make me want to literally combust. And with that being said, that is the end of this round of my fashion unpopular opinions and hot takes. I loved filming this. Maybe I just love to rant, but I absolutely love filming this, so let me know if you enjoyed watching it, and I would definitely be down to film another one, because I have a whole notes app list of all of my unpopular opinions and hot takes about fashion and different brands and what have you. So yeah, thank you for watching and stopping by and listening to me rant and maybe spiral a little bit. Definitely let's start a conversation down in the comments. Let me know what you think about some of the things I said, whether you agree or disagree. As long as you're respectful, your opinion is welcome here, and I will see you in the next video. Laters.